Greetings, Internet. Welcome to the GB3 Podcast, the GB3 Podcast, now part of the DNA Digital Network. Thanks to the DNA Digital Network, you'll be able to find this podcast and others within the network on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, and where other podcasts can be found. For more details, look at DNADigitalNetwork.com. I am one half of your dynamic duo, HeiseNerd, Bill Fields.
And I am the Reel Geno Reynolds. Bill, people can't hear this right now, but we're struggling today. How's it going for you? Because I know that I am in Strugglesville right now.
Oh, man, the struggle has been real, both on the podcast and outside of. I dealt with this afternoon having somebody come inspect our attic because there has been raccoon activity going on at the house. Well, that's been a fun time.
Oh, I imagine that's been fun. Well, Bill, why don't you let everyone know what we're going to talk about today?
All right, so we're going to be doing our main topic of guilty pleasures this evening. I thought it would be a fun time for us to open up and kind of talk about some of the things in movies, TV, music, and games that we think that, we're into, but others might think, what's wrong with you for being into this? Or they're kind of things that are universally panned. So we thought it'd be kind of fun. But as always, we are going to be starting off with our short topics, as always, each episode. For this week, I'm going to be talking a little bit about old Bill Cosby.
Oh, you got to start it off dark, don't you?
Yes. Yes, I do. So, I just read an article today about some more news in the Bill Cosby case. It looks like that there was a retrial, I guess, already, and now there's even more news about the defense attorney thinking that, this lady that has, Andrea Constant, had been accusing him. They're starting to get an idea that maybe she might be not telling everything that's true. I haven't read every detail about this. I just thought maybe we could kind of discuss the whole Bill Cosby case. So my opening thoughts, I mean, this is old news, but it's also new news, I guess, to some extent. Obviously, if this stuff is the case, then, yeah, he deserves to have to deal with whatever, results come from that. But if this was really the case that, somebody was trying to make something bigger out of what it really was, it's kind of a shame because you've taken, even if his name is cleared or as far as legally or civilly or anything like that, in the public's eye, I don't think his name is ever going to get cleared because now you've got this stain on your record, basically, and now, somebody who was an icon for so many years, and really kind of, reached across the aisle in his day between races, and now it's kind of a shame to see that, somebody that was so iconic now may have a bad reputation regardless of whatever results come from this. I wanted to see what some of your opening thoughts were on this, Gino.
Well, here it is, Bill Cosby. And I used to be able to say that Bill Cosby was my favorite entertainer of all time. I wish one day, and I hope one day that I hope that if he didn't do these things, that his name is cleared, because I would like to call him that again. He is someone whose career I have followed forever. He's someone who I've owned every album. I used to play cassette tapes of Bill Cosby when I was a kid, until they would break, and then we'd have to get another one. The thing with this is, first of all, it comes down to almost he said, she said. And now, granted, now you also have however many dozen, or not dozens, or whatever, of women that have said that he's done these things. But you just never know, who's just looking for a payday or who's just looking for publicity. And I'm not saying I'm taking sides here. I'm just trying to play devil's advocate. Because you just never know. But being that there are so many, it's hard to dispute all of them. Now,
Right.
granted, now who knows? The one that is being tried, who knows? I mean, best case scenario for Bill Cosby right now is he cheated on his wife with this woman and paid her to be quiet about it. You know what I mean? And it's there's really no other than not going to prison. There's no silver lining for him, no matter what the outcome.
No, not at all.
If they've proved that somehow that she's lying or something like that, then then he still has a strained relationship with his wife. So I mean, he's not getting out of this scot-free, because I mean, he did admit to having, he says they had an affair. So it's just hard to know what to believe, because especially, I mean, when this happened somewhere, I think, what was it, early 2000s, I think it said, the article that I read said it was something like that.
Was 2004 or something like that.
So, you're looking at, around 15 years. So, that's a long time ago that, it's hard to prove things. So, I mean, it's really hard to know where this is going to go. I have a feeling that it's probably going to end up in another jury that, can't make a decision. And really, part of it probably still is because of who he is. Because it's hard to look past. It's hard to look past that celebrity. Anybody that's in that jury, there's no one in that jury that, unless they lived under a rock, can say, I don't know who this is, and don't have an opinion on him, whether they grew up with him or they think he's the scum of the earth. So I mean, this is a really tricky trial that I'm afraid, and I don't even know if they'll try it for a third time. I'm willing to bet they're going to try this case. If they say the juries keep not being able to make a decision, they'll probably try this case till he dies.
Well, yeah, as old as he is, it's really sad to see that this is kind of happening really, just so late in a man's life, after he's made himself and a name for himself after all this time. And that's not, I'm not saying that, like I said, he's not obviously done perfectly. It's a shame to see that this has happened, because I mean, I grew up listening to Bill Cosby. I grew up watching picture pages, and I watched some Fat Albert as a kid. And, I introduced my kids to Bill Cosby, before all this started happening. And after it came out, it's really sad to look back at that and be like, man, somebody that you thought of as a role model, and now this is all coming out. And I always thought that he was just really good as a stand-up, because I mean, he could deliver so well, yet kind of keep it clean,
Yeah, I saw him perform a couple times live, and I was gonna see him a third time. He was gonna come in the area, and I had tickets and everything, and then they canceled the show, and I'm like, what's going on? Then all of a sudden, this whole thing really started to blow up, and it's just hard to know where this is going to go. That being said, you said it's a shame it happened this late in his life. Well, if he did these things, then he still deserves to be punished.
Oh, absolutely.
And I know you believe that too. It's just, I don't know, other than, well, she's saying it this way and he's saying it this way. I mean, other than the other witnesses, which I'm not even I'm not even sure what testimonies they're allowing from all these other women. I didn't follow the first case real close, and I don't know how. I think they were allowed to talk, but I'm not sure in the first time around how many were able to. I know they can't try him because I think a lot of them were too old. But I think they were allowed as, like, I guess you'd say, character witnesses or something like that. And think about that. I mean, who knows how many of them said anything in the first trial, and the jury was, couldn't make a decision. And I just have a feeling it's going to happen again. And this is one that I think a prosecutor would never give up on, because if he finally got a jury to say guilty, that'd make his career. Or it could actually sink his career if the jury said not guilty. So who knows which way it's going to swing. If it doesn't, like I said, I have a feeling they're just going to keep trying it until he finally passes, because he's what, 80 something, 80 years old, and who knows how much longer he has. I mean, he could have 2 years, he could have 20 years. Eventually, someone's either going to make a decision, and some people aren't going to like it either way. But I just have a feeling that no one's going to be able to make a choice unless they, one side gets lucky when it comes to picking a jury.
Right. I mean, celebrity, I feel like, also kind of gains you a little bit of an advantage in a trial. I mean, let's take O.J. Simpson, for example, here. But, I mean, I think that, and I'm not saying this just because you are a celebrity, but obviously you can afford better defense and things like that kind of help you out. So,
well, yeah, think about that. I mean, O.J. went bankrupt pretty much with the murder trial. I mean, he lost in the civil trial, and he hid all, a lot of his stuff and all that. I don't remember all the details, but think about this: Cosby. When you compare him to, say, O.J., Cosby is probably multiple times richer because of, I mean, however many years Cosby Show was in syndication. Just from that alone, he probably, has more money than, well, now he knows what to do with it because he's got to pay defense lawyers. But, he never had to worry about money, especially after that show went to syndication. And then, I mean, he was America's dad,
Yep.
So, I mean, when you're talking about terms of celebrity, I mean, this is almost as high as you can really go when it comes to celebrity, because I mean, there isn't a lot of people more well known, in Hollywood than Bill Cosby. And I think we talked about this before when we were talking about, the whole Hollywood situation is, I think we were both a little surprised that this wasn't what kind of kickstarted the whole movement, the Me Too stuff and things like that. But then again, I think they were looking for someone a little more, sleazy,
Sure.
Because I mean, look at living, breathing Jabba the Hutt that is Harvey Weinstein. I mean, he's easy to point fingers at because he looks like a sleazeball. He always kind of acted like a sleazeball.
Oh, yeah.
And come to find out, he pretty much, from what we can tell, is a sleazeball. So I mean, a lot of his stuff would be he said, she said too. But then again, apparently there's some eyewitness accounts of that stuff too. So, but with Cosby, I mean, it's if he did this stuff, think about it. I mean, apparently the ones that he allegedly did this to, I mean, he used drugs and he was probably always alone. And I mean, if he did this stuff, I mean, it takes a pretty sick guy to do what he allegedly did.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. So, I mean, in closing thoughts, I mean, like I said, it's a shame. I really hope that, we kind of get some closure to this. It would really be a shame, I mean, to see that he's stuck kind of in court for, like, the rest of his life. I mean, I would rather at least, as a person at that age, want to have some closure to it. Whether that's I'm, sitting and doing time for the rest of my life or whatever it is, but just to sit in a court, system and not really have any certainty would be a shame. I don't know. But anyway, let's move on to something a little bit lighter, Gino.
Yeah. Let me lighten the mood a little bit because you're bringing this podcast down, man. You're bringing the podcast down, man. And that's a little bit of a transition here. I got a couple stories about Cheech and Chong. Because, if we're going to lighten this up, we're going to lighten this up. Literally, in some cases with them. I have a couple stories here. The first story I have is during a Cheech and Chong career retrospective with Forbes, some interesting news came out about a live-action movie that we both love so much. Okay, and hopefully you can detect the sarcasm in my voice over Skype here. Cheech Marin revealed that he was originally offered the role of Mario in 1993's Super Mario Brothers.
Nice.
And as we both know, and as everyone that's probably listening to this knows, that movie had famously troubled production. And we won't really go into a lot of it. and here's some notes that I didn't know, or maybe I had heard it and I don't remember it. Apparently, Danny DeVito and Tom Hanks were up for Mario, and Arnold Schwarzenegger was up for Koopa, which I don't know if I can imagine anyone but Dennis Hopper doing that stuff. But
right,
but here's the thing. I got some. Here's a little back and forth between Marin and Chong, and it starts with Marin, quote, "I turned down a few video games," and I imagine he means video game movies, when they were starting out. They wanted me to be this character, and it turned out the character they were asking me to be was Mario of Mario Brothers. Chong, what? Are you kidding? Marin, no. It was because he had his mustache, Chong, holy S. You could have been Mario? Marin, yeah, for real. They were going to give me a cut of the royalties and everything. What royalties? Chong, oh my God, I didn't know that. So can you imagine Mario Brothers with Cheech Marin?
I think it would have been even better Tommy Chong with Luigi.
Well, would it be Cheech and Chong's? I mean, they would give a whole new meaning to the whole mushroom thing, I think.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Whoa, we're in the Mushroom Kingdom, man.
Hey, man.
But it's just hard to imagine. I mean, it was hard to imagine John Leguizamo as Luigi because he's not Italian. And right. Granted, I'm not sure what nationality that Bob Hoskins was, but I don't believe he was Italian.
I know he's British one way or I don't know if Scottish, or I know he's definitely from the UK.
Yeah, but he's definitely not Italian. And so it's hard to imagine Cheech Marin, and if they wanted him just because he had his famous mustache, it's like saying let's put Sam Elliott in as Mario, because we're picking him because of his mustache, or Tom Selleck, which granted, I would love to see a Sam Elliott Mario, but just the idea of this, because especially, I mean, Cheech Marin, of course, has, I don't want to call it a stigma, it's his shtick was usually, the druggie, and I honestly, we make the jokes about the mushroom thing. I think that would be something that people would make fun of to this day if he was in that movie.
Oh, yes.
And it's just hard to imagine. I mean, don't get me wrong, I like Cheech Marin as a performer, but Mario, I don't know. I just don't know if I could even see it. I mean, for what we got, Bob Hoskins was a phenomenal actor. So, I mean, granted, he was drunk on set all the time, according to him, or according to John Leguizamo, but it's just hard to imagine someone else playing that part, so I don't know if I could see Cheech Marin in that role. But here's something that also came out. This is just a little bit of a different subject. Came out during that Forbes retrospective. Also, they commented on something that they revealed last year, which I didn't know about this, so it's new to me. Wish that there was almost a Friday the 13th Cheech and Chong crossover movie.
Oh man, see now that'd be great.
Well, but back when they were talking about it, it never went beyond the pitch because the producers felt that it wouldn't be scary enough for the horror fans, or vice versa, it wouldn't be funny enough for the comedy fans. The duo actually said that they were never approached about the idea, but they said they would have loved it. Yeah. So I think nowadays, if Cheech and Chong were a thing now, which I don't know if they could be, maybe, because they may be considered pushing it nowadays. In some ways, they would probably be seen as fantastic. I mean, they're still classic to me, but
I mean, is stoner comedy even really that relevant anymore now? I mean, considering that, the idea that, marijuana is pretty much being legalized most everywhere now anyway.
Yeah, there hasn't been any big stoner movies. But still, I mean, you just look at some of the movies that they did, like Corsican Brothers, I mean, if they're going to put a movie in like that setting, I could see them putting it in a horror setting, even if it wasn't Jason. I mean, could you imagine the jokes about, like, if they were in Nightmare on Elm Street, where they're talking about their jokes or their dreams being altered. I mean, there's just so much there. I mean, they could be smoking a doobie with Freddy. I mean, there's just so many possibilities that I think would have been fantastic. I mean, because they talk about mixing like Ash from The Evil Dead with Freddy, and and Jason and stuff like that now.
Yeah.
Why not? I mean, why not Cheech and Chong?
Well, stoner in horror movie actually is. I mean, case in point is Cabin in the Woods. I mean, the one kid in that was fantastic. So
yeah, and that was just a fantastic movie to begin with. I mean, the fact that it just kind of made fun of the genre, but still honored it was pretty cool. But yeah, I think nowadays it would have worked, and heck, I would still watch it, to this day. But I mean, why not try something like that since they can't, seem to be able to reboot Friday the 13th? Jason ain't doing nothing. He already went to space, for crying out loud. Why, why can't he fight against, two potheads? Heck, in the last remake of Friday the 13th, Jason, he had his own pot field that was like legendary that people would steal pot from, and he would track him down and steal his pot back. So, I mean, come on. They could have fit into the remake. It would have been fantastic. It would have been better than the crap show that we got, the last time they did it. But yeah, the idea of Cheech and Chong doing a horror film, it's a sad thing that we missed out upon, I think.
Absolutely. So, I think it's time to move on to our main topic. And speaking of the fact that we mentioned Super Mario Brothers, we could move on to our guilty pleasures. So, our first setup is going to be, we're going to talk about movies. And I've got a short list here of movies that I like that I'm sure that others would probably look at me and think that I'm crazy. And one of those movies actually is Super Mario Brothers. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm very well aware of the fact that this movie is bad. I'm very well aware of the fact that it's not good at all. But it doesn't stop me from, like, if it happens to be on, watching it or taking every once in a while to just go and see it, because I mean, I can enjoy it for its ridiculousness. And also, I mean, it was a piece of my my childhood. And, I drank the Kool-Aid. I was a kid, and I was like, oh man, I got the hype when it came, they were talking about it in Nintendo Power and stuff like that. So, I mean, there's still a nostalgia factor in there. What's a movie on your list, real quick, Gino?
Well, let me make a comment about Super Mario Brothers. It didn't make my list, but of course, there's some we're going to forget here. I've had a crush on Samantha Mathis to this day because of that movie, and it's not on my list, but I just kind of remembered it because you mentioned Super Mario Brothers and Pump Up the Volume. I've kind of had a crush on her since those two movies.
I've got another movie on my list with her too, but we'll go there.
The first movie I got, and I got a bunch of them here, is Starship Troopers. Okay, that movie. I mean, it's one of those movies they've made 3 movies, 2 animated movies, a cartoon show. Or 2 or 3 animated movies. One just came out not too long ago. It's one of those things that you can see what they're doing. And I know it's based on a book series that's apparently a little different. But you can see what they're doing with that. The execution is kind of cheesy, but there's something there. And really, I think it's the satire. It kind of just makes fun of, the media and the military a little bit, but it also shows the real side too, where, there is real consequences to the actions of a less than inept government and things like that. I mean, the soldiers are the heroes in the story, but the government isn't the smartest, and they underestimate our enemies. And really, I don't want to get into politics on this podcast, really, but it definitely resonates to this day, with our country a little bit. So, Starship Troopers, and plus it's just a lot of fun. Like Clancy Brown as the drill sergeant, and the cheesy lines, and the wanting the guy to get with the right girl and not the stupid girl that is probably going to cheat on him the second she goes into the flight academy, and just things like that. There's so much going on with this movie. The sequels aren't so great. The animated movies aren't so great, but the first movie itself is actually still really good, and it's something that I'll watch whenever I see it pop on.
Right. Now, I've only seen the first one, and I've only seen it like maybe once. The only thing I like really remember about it is Neil Patrick Harris, but that's like really about it.
That would be psychic Neil Patrick Harris. All right, what's the next one on your list?
Okay, so my next one on my list is Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves.
Hey, man.
Hey, I know that this is like kind of like score wise and review wise, that this is not very universally liked, but I love the crap out of this movie, and I will put it up against any other Robin Hood movie up to this point. And yeah, sure, Kevin Costner isn't speaking with an English accent, whatever. Neither is Christian Slater, but hey man, we got a really good Morgan Freeman performance out of this. Oh my goodness, Sheriff of Nottingham.
Yeah, do not forget Alan Rickman's good name.
Alan
Thank
Rickman,
you very much.
Because it's dull, you twit, it'll hurt more. It's such a great movie.
I can't say anything. Upstairs, I have the director's cut of that movie, which adds more of the witch and the Sheriff of Nottingham and actually makes the witch relevant.
Right.
The next movie on my list, and by the way, I saw that one in the theater, is one of the first movies I ever owned on VHS. This is really technically 3 movies, but they're all pretty much the same movie. This is the Transporter films with Jason Statham. I don't count that new one that they did because the Ed Skrein one was kind of crap. Just any time I want to see Statham kick somebody's butt, I throw in the Transporter movies. And Statham is a better actor than these movies, and he's been in better movies.
Right.
But the first movie I ever saw him in was the first Transporter movie. They made a big deal about him. It's like, here's this new action star. So I was like, okay, I'll watch this. The movie isn't great, but if you just want some good, stupid, action, I just say turn on the Transporter movies. A lot of fun driving, a lot of kung fu, Statham, outclassing everybody he fights. I mean, it's just good, dumb fun. There's really not much more I can say about him.
Well, Statham's been in worse, too. I mean, we did get in The Name of the King, so...
I'm still creeped out by Lily Sobieski and Ray Liotta's little love affair in that... Yeah, you didn't remember that, did you? It's like, wait a minute, wait a minute, how much older than he is she, So right. Anyway, yeah, that one was bad, but yeah, the Transporter movies, they're not good, but they're fun.
Yeah. My next one on my list is Judge Dredd, the Sylvester Stallone version.
Let me hurt him, Paul.
I am the law. I know that this is a terrible movie down to Rob Schneider, but I still think that it's a fun, dumb movie to watch and put on and, kind of laugh at just, again, how dumb this movie really is. I surprisingly enough, I have yet to see the remake with Carl Urban, which I've heard is really good.
Oh, you are missing out like you won't believe. That movie is what Dredd really should be.
Right.
But I'll give it to you on the Stallone one. It's not a good movie, but I get where you're coming from because and I'll be naming a Stallone movie coming up here that you can kind of love for the same reason. So I'll give you that one. The next one on my list, and I don't know how many you got. How many do you have on your list? I'm just curious.
I've got a couple more on mine. So
I'll name just a few more of mine. Here's just a few of them. The Punisher movies, all 3 of them.
Okay.
All of them are not good movies. I mean, the Netflix series blows the movies out of the water, but I still have a soft spot in my heart because A, I love the character, and B, there's all 3 of them have something to like in them. Usually it's the performance of the person playing the Punisher, because even Dolph Lundgren made a good Punisher. He just didn't have a good movie to be a Punisher in.
Right.
Then I have Kroll which I don't know if you remember Kroll.
I don't.
It's a sci-fi fantasy movie where a guy's looking for a mystical frisbee weapon that has blades on it. It's one of Liam Neeson's first movies. He's not the main character. He's like this side character that you wouldn't know him unless you were really looking for him. And I really like the movie because there was a video game that I used to play all the time.
Oh, okay.
And then I'll throw out The Last Starfighter, which
Okay.
on my podcast, apparently they're talking about making a reboot / sequel of.
Now, did that actually get panned, though? I'm not entirely sure.
Well, see, the way I see Guilty Pleasures is, I wouldn't say it got panned, but see, especially when it comes to movies, we're riding this fine line of panned versus cult classic.
Right.
Because, I mean, there's movies out there that, you know, if 50% love them, do you call it a cult classic or do you call it a bad movie? You know,
Right.
So the way I just see it is, I just know that, I mean, that movie was always seen as, well, it's not Star Wars. You know what I mean? That's why we never really got a sequel to it. It's just one of those space movies that's trying to, you know,
Sure.
live off the legacy of Star Wars or even Star Trek. I mean, because think about it. If it would have been a huge successful movie, there might have been more because it practically sequel baits at the end of that movie. So, you know, it's just one of those. That's one of those to this day. I love the story. I love the idea of playing a video game that's actually a test to be the galaxy's hero. You know, that's just that idea of, hey, aliens might come and get me if I'm really good at this video game and I can fight for the whole universe. You know, that
Right.
idea was just really cool to me. So I'll let you name one on your list there.
Okay, next one on my list is Broken Arrow with John Travolta and Christian Slater and Samantha Mathis.
Nice. I forgot.
man.
I forgot she was in that.
Oh yeah, I that's another one of those where it's just kind of like a dumb action movie, but I mean, and John Travolta at, you know, his best at being worst.
Oh
you
yeah.
know?
You know, speaking of Samantha Mathis, I met her a few years ago, and she's a sweetheart. I do have to say that. But yeah, man, anything that Travolta was doing around that time, because I think was that right after Face Off? I think
Broken Arrow was before.
Was
Face
it?
Off.
Okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, just around that time when after he had done Pulp Fiction and he was getting that groove again.
Right.
You know,
and then he lost it with Battlefield Earth.
No, jeez, that was his fault. He just had to make that movie. Yeah, that one's definitely not on my list. I'll throw out a few more here. Bloodsport.
Oh yeah, and Van Damme, of course. Right?
You know, oh yeah. I mean, just everything about that movie is cheesy, but it's so fantastic. And what's fun about that movie is it's supposedly based on a true story of the real Frank Dukes. And if you follow up YouTube's study of the real Frank Dukes, you'll find out that Bloodsport is a load of crap. But that being said, it's still a fantastic movie that I love to this day. Just cheesy kung fu, you know, just cheesy fighting, cheesy dialogue. Van Damme at his cheesiest. I'm just really using that word a lot.
Oh no.
But there's no real other way to describe this movie. I mean, just the part alone of him doing the splits and the character Ray Jackson, you know, Ogre from Revenge of the Nerds going, you know, oh, that hurts me, you know, stuff like that. That's worth just that whole movie is worth checking out. And I've actually still been able to introduce people to that movie that surprisingly had never seen it. And I'm also going to throw Hackers in there. You know, back when hacking was cool,
right.
And you know, Hollywood's idea of hackers was like skateboarders that, you know, dressed like they were from the future, and you know, everyone got a crush on Angelina Jolie during that movie. That's definitely a cheesy movie. It's like these ragtag computer hackers against, you know, basically Bill Gates, you know, and it's just a cheesy. I mean, does it live up? to the times? Of course not. But is it a fun movie that if I see it on, I'll watch? Heck yes, it is.
So next one on my list is Con Air. Loving me some Nick Cage. You know what? This movie had quite a cast. I mean, we got Nick Cage, we got John Malkovich. My goodness, Steve Buscemi's even in it. Danny Trejo's in it.
Oh yeah.
Ving Rhames is in it. Man, it's just like it is loaded to the gills with a bunch of people. Like it's funny because like back then they weren't as big, but now looking back, it's like, man, all these people were in this movie. Nah, man, it's just some of the best quotes out of Nick Cage come out of that movie. Put the bunny back in the box.
If there's anything that stands out in that movie, it's that hair. Nick Cage's hair.
Oh man,
in that movie is majestic. I have, we mentioned Stallone earlier. Demolition Man is on my list.
Oh yeah.
Just for its hilarious look at the future. I mean, I still make jokes about Taco Bell because of that movie. Just you wondered if the world's going to become, this peace-loving, cheese-tastic, we sing commercials as songs type world. I mean, just the cheesy casting in that movie. I mean, Sandra Bullock's fantastic in that movie. Wesley Snipes is really fantastic in that movie as the villain. It's basically just the fish out of water story, but it's a cop, in the future. I mean, that's really all it is. The fact that, he got his rehabilitation is implanted in his brain. He knits, It's just stupid little things like that. The 3 seashells, I still wonder to this day how they work. It kind of is gross if you think about it, but yeah. So Demolition Man's big on my list. I've watched that movie more than a lot of different things.
Another one on mine, Major League 2. I think that one might actually, is better than the first one.
Boo.
Oh man, I love
Boo.
it.
How dare you replace Wesley Snipes? How dare you?
I know, man.
I bulked up. Yeah, okay. Yeah, you bulked up your paycheck you wanted is what it was there, Wesley. But I dig that one. I'll give you that one. But then again, I love the first one. So I mean, I'll have to boo you just a little bit.
And then another one, Kindergarten Cop. Again, I don't know if that's necessarily a panned movie, but I mean that's just some of the best Arnold quotes. Is not a tumor. Come out of that one.
I think that one just kind of threw people for a loop at the time because you didn't expect that out of Arnold. Of course, you expected Terminator out of Arnold. You expected Commando out of Arnold.
I think Twins was probably about the extent of his comedy at that point.
Right. And so, and I mean, Twins, I don't remember it that well to this day. I know they keep talking about making another one. And adding, I think it's Eddie Murphy, and it was called Triplets or something. I guess they've been talking about doing, but you don't remember Twins that much. But I mean, Kindergarten Cop. I mean, you realize just how funny Schwarzenegger could be. Just his interactions with the kids. It just makes for good comedy. I mean, the story surrounding the everything is really cheesy. And yeah, I'm willing to bet that that's one that you may consider it a cult classic, I guess, even though, I mean, you could still consider it a guilty pleasure because if you liked it before as a cult classic, well, it's a guilty pleasure to you.
Right. Okay. Unless you have any other movies, I'm ready to move on to TV, Gino.
Yeah, I got a couple more, and I'll go through them real quick. Passenger 57, Wesley Snipes, stopping plane hijacking. I still quote anytime I go to Vegas, I'm going to put it all in black, bet it all in black. And then surviving the game, it's Ice-T surviving the wilderness against hunters that are hunting people. Gary Busey's in that movie being Gary Busey and Rutger Hauer's in it. Charles S. Dutton's in it. There's Ted McGinley's in it. He's fantastic in that movie. He's just crazy. But yeah, Ice-T's a homeless guy, and they hire him to be a hunting guide, and then the next morning they wake him up and say, you got 15 minutes to run, and it's him hunting them down. It's an interesting movie. If I'm in a dark mood, it's The New Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. I have to be if I'm in a really bad mood, I don't know why, I throw that movie on and I feel better. It's kind of weird.
Yeah, it is. It does have that kind of vibe to it.
Yeah, because not a lot of people like it, and a lot of people prefer the original trilogy over the American version. But I really love the American version. But I have to be in the right mood. UHF. I know that's widely loved now, but I love that movie since the beginning when people were calling it crap.
Right.
And even to this day, working in TV, it really resonates with me. And then the last one is The Losers. Listen to this cast. It's Idris Elba, Jeffrey Dean Morgan, Chris Evans, Jason Patrick, Zoe Saldana. Heck, you got how many Marvel guys in there?
Yeah, right.
And then at least one DC guy in there. Technically, to this day, I can throw that movie in when I just want to have a good time. And I'm still mad to this day. And when I met Jeffrey D. Morgan, I'm like, when is the sequel coming to this movie? And he's like, I want it too. It just didn't do well enough because people, the A-Team was coming out and people were, looking forward to the A-Team, which I love that movie too. But The Losers is a better version of the A-Team to me. And to this day, it stands up. And to this day, I still hope eventually someday they may make a sequel to it. Probably not going to happen, but I can always hope. That's the last of the movies on my list.
Well, speaking of the A-Team, it's time to move on to TV.
Okay.
And I think that the A-Team actually stands to reason as a TV guilty pleasure. It was pretty popular in its time, but when you look at it now, it's certainly hokey. I love the fact that it's such an action-y show, but you don't really see a whole lot of them shooting at each other or anything like that because of censorship and stuff like that on TV.
Well, that was just it. The A-Team didn't kill. And then that was the biggest shock to a lot of people when the A-Team movie came out, is that, man, they blew suckers away and they did it real quick. And I remember that's why Mr. T wouldn't be in the A-Team movie, the new one, because he didn't do a cameo because we didn't kill people, fool. So yeah, the A-Team, yeah, it's cheese-tastic, but man, is it a good time.
Oh yes. And then this will be several shows kind of wrapped into one, but one of my guilty pleasures of TV, TGIF, and most of the shows that came from that.
Oh, jeez.
Full House. Family Matters, Step by Step, any of that. I could still sit and watch an episode or two of those, and I look at this. I also realize, man, I really loved this stuff as a kid, but man, is this stuff is hokey now. It is gut-wrenchingly cheesy.
Let me ask you this: did you watch not remake, but the continuation of Full House? That's on Netflix.
Fuller House, I watched most of the first season. I didn't even touch the second one. It was okay. It kind of took a newer spin on the same kind of, I don't know, it still was just as kind of cheesy. I just don't feel like it applied as well in a newer setting. But speaking of newer, I did watch the first couple episodes of Roseanne of season 10. And I will say that those actually do hold up even today. So I would certainly recommend watching them.
All right. Well, on my list, the first one I had that I could think of was Ren and Stimpy. And I know many would consider them beloved, but man, they weren't on for very long. I know they tried to bring them back, and the way they brought them back didn't work. They tried to make it more of an adult show.
Right.
And it worked better as, this is an awkward show that your kids can watch, that shows in an hour that they can watch it. And let's see if parents catch on. Because, man, that show was weird. Everything from would you like to buy a rubber nipple to it's log to Powdered Toast Man.
Don't whiz on the electric fence.
Don't whiz on the electric fence. I mean, just the Happy Happy Joy Joy episode alone is insane. And, you know, I can't, I mean, my parents, you know, gave me a lot of leeway watching things. They let me watch this. I had posters of Ren and Stimpy, you know, up in my room growing up. But man, that was a weird show that, you know, I wanted to show my kids, and I turned on the Happy Happy Joy Joy video, because I know my son would like the song. But man, that's even a weird song. And then you add the cartoon to it, and it's like, yeah, I think we'll turn off Ren and Stimpy for a while. It's like, I can love it because I grew up with it. Not sure if I'm going to let my kids love it.
No.
The next thing I've got on my list is The Pretender. It's hard to really explain this show, but it ran for about 4 seasons, had 2 made-for-TV movies. It's about a guy that can basically mimic any job he wants, and then the secret organization that had kidnapped him years ago, and he's trying to track down his family, and they're trying to catch him. It's a show that after a couple seasons, it didn't really make any sense, but I just couldn't stop watching it anyway because I liked the characters. But, you know, I went back and watched it. Now it's been maybe 5, 6, 7 years ago. And though I enjoyed it, it's like, man, if I was watching this as an adult, I probably would have gave up on it. But I still really like it to this day. And then with that, I'll add in a show that didn't really get a chance to go on long enough. It only went 2 seasons. That was Human Target on Fox.
I don't recall that one.
It was based on, I believe it was a DC comic. They changed it a lot from the comic. It was basically about this company that you could hire this guy, and he would, you know, it was kind of a bodyguard type of show where, you know, you'd hire him to protect you and also figure out who was trying to kill you, kind of thing. I haven't seen it in a long time. I just remember being really mad because Jackie Earle Haley was in the show and he was really good. I loved his character, and after that show got canceled, it's when Fox would just cancel stuff because, oh no, you know, 2 people less stopped watching it. It must not be doing good, like when they canceled Lie to Me. You know, the shows are just starting to really get into their groove, and then they cancel it. So yeah, I'll add in Human Target to that one.
Well, one that I watched, it got its full run, but it was like basically on the verge of cancellation all the time, was Fringe. I really enjoyed that show. If you want to like see John Noble at his best as far as his acting goes, that's the show you want to watch. It got 4 seasons, well 3.5 ish. The last season was a shorter season, but it was if you're kind of into the X-Files and paranormal type stuff, it's really actually a good sci-fi show.
Yeah, I never really got to see that one. I mean, it was on in the time I was watching a lot of TV, but never really got to see it.
And then moving on to a cartoon, the Super Mario Brothers Super Show, which we've kind of talked about in other episodes. Obviously, another guilty pleasure of mine. And, you know, I talk about the cartoons on there, but I actually liked the live-action segments with Captain Lou Albano, too, as Mario. So.
Yeah, some of the best episodes is when, like, Captain Lou was in the episode as well, and him and Mario would keep missing each other. Like, I came here to see Mario. Well, he just stepped out. Well, okay, I'll step out again, and then walks Mario, you know. That was always kind of fun.
Well, then they got Cyndi Lauper came in as a guest once, I think, because they were pretty close friends and everything. So that was pretty cool.
Next on my list, I'll group a few of these together. I like a lot of, I call them the real reality shows before all this garbage we got nowadays. Your Unsolved Mysteries, your America's Most Wanted,
yes. Rescue 911,
your Rescue 911, your Cops. Especially Cops. Even to this day, I think Cops is still on. I don't know what channel it is, but I know I saw a commercial for it the other day. I mean, who knows how, you know, if it's scripted now or something. But yeah, I was always into those. I love cop stuff. You know, I mean, I love cop dramas. And then, I mean, you know, they're talking on these shows, you know, they're talking about real crime and, you know, real unsolved crime and things like that. And I was always just really interested in that. There's really not much more I can say about it other than loving cop stuff. It was really cool. And I even enjoyed like the cheesy reenactments they did, you know, on some of those shows. So anything.
I was so excited. I was so excited because Unsolved Mysteries is now available on Amazon Prime. So I've been watching that.
Don't tell me that. Don't tell me that. The next shows, I can group these two together, though I haven't really watched them in a long time. Your Hercules and Xena shows.
Oh my goodness.
Yes, I know they are awful and the CG is awful and the effects are awful. But, you know, I mean, you know, who didn't have a thing for Lucy Lawless back then? Yeah. And really, though he was shocked to hear this, my first real experience of Bruce Campbell was on that show. Which he was like, I had him sign a picture of Autolycus, and he goes, "Really?" I'm like, "Yeah, man, that's like the first thing I ever saw you in," because I think he was expecting everyone to have either, you know, Burn Notice or Briscoe County or Evil Dead or whatever, and I bring up a picture from Hercules, you know. So yeah, those shows, I know they're terrible, and I don't know if I can watch them now. But, man, I watched the crap out of those shows when they were on.
What was the show that Hulk Hogan was on? Was it Thunder in Paradise or something like that?
Yeah, it was on TBS or TNT. It was part of the deal.
I remember that one, too.
It was part of the deal that's how they got him to come to WCW Wrestling, was they promised him a show.
He got a TV deal.
Correct. And also then they also start bringing on all the other WCW stars onto that show, like Sting was a bad guy and things like that, which it took him forever to turn heel in wrestling, for crying out loud, but instantly a bad guy on the TV show. But yeah, that's how they got Hulk Hogan
right.
to come out of retirement to wrestle for WCW. It was they gave him Thunder in Paradise.
Okay, I wondered that was what it was. Another last thing on TV, I didn't have on the list, but I just remembered it, was most of the live action shows that were on Nickelodeon, such as like Hey Dude, Salute Your Shorts, Clarissa Explains It All. I used to really be into all three of those. So,
you know, I never really got into those, but I loved You Can't Do That on Television. I don't know if you remember that show.
Yep.
That's where a lot of the slime stuff came from. And you know, if you said I don't know, you got slime, and you said water, you got water dumped on you. And Alanis Morissette was on that show. It was one of the first things she ever did.
Yep.
So yeah, that was one that whenever it comes to Nickelodeon, the other ones I'd never really got into.
Any other TV shows for you, Gino? Otherwise, I'm ready to move on to music.
Yeah, I got a few more. I'll just throw out here. Dr. Katz. I'm a big stand-up guy, so Dr. Katz really stood out with me. And then also, as a movie critic, The Critic really stood out to me. And I mean, to this day, I still drop the occasional "It stinks," you know, throwing a little Jay Sherman out there. These next two, I don't know if I think they're more beloved than guilty pleasures, but Animaniacs and The Tick. Because the humor transcends to this day to the fact that Animaniacs is coming back, and The Tick has the Amazon series, which I've only seen the first half of the first season, and it's fantastic. The last show I have to throw out there is, and I don't know if you're going to remember this one, Captain Power. Do you remember Captain Power?
Wasn't it something where like you played a game with it or something like that on the VCR, and you like had like it was light gun type stuff or something like that?
Yeah,
with the toys.
Yeah, you had toys that had like eject features, and there would be certain lights on the VHS tapes that would trigger the toys, and if you got hit so many times, your toy would go flying out towards the television ejector seat. But there was actually I believe it was a 2-season show that, I mean, it was the earliest of CG and just the goofiest of costumes and things like that. But I mean, as a little kid with his imagination, and you just got the toys for Christmas, that show was, and no pun intended, because Captain Power was in golden armor. The show was golden. it's one of those shows that I've tried to go back to watch, but I either can't find it, or if I do find it, it costs so much money that I can't afford to watch it.
Right.
I'm still searching the YouTubes for it, and eventually I'm going to find it because I know it's there somewhere. But yeah,
buried.
If you're wanting the cheese-tastic, I mean, this stuff, I mean, to me, it's what Power Rangers is to some people, you know, because this was before all that for me. And it's just one of those shows that one of these days I'm going to get to look back on it. And even though I knew it was bad back then, but I still love it, and I'll probably still love it to this day.
All right, so ready to move on to music.
Okay.
My number. These are just groups that I chose. That were like, okay, these are some that people would think I'm crazy for liking, but whatever. My number one on my list here is Roxette.
Okay.
I don't care what anybody thinks. When I hear, what is it? Dangerous or She's Got the Look. I mean, I am into it anytime any of those songs come onto the radio. What's the first one on your list, Gino?
It's more of a group, but I can listen to just about anything they sing. That'd be Men at Work. My Australian heritage plays into this one. I mean, yes, the songs, especially like Down Under, are really cheesy, but I love songs like Who Can It Be Now? But the one I really love, I can listen to all the time, is Overkill.
Oh, yeah.
And just, I don't know what it is. It's just, if it's the music or the lyrics, everything just resonates with me. And it just like you, if I hear it in the car, it's getting sung. That's all I gotta say.
Yeah. Next on my list is Heart. I'm pretty sure that Ann Wilson is probably the best female singer that I've ever heard in my life. I mean, and it's funny because, I mean, from stuff that I've heard now, she still holds up today, even, since way back when. But yeah, man, if Alone or What About Love come on, yep, I'm into those too.
The next thing on my list, it's not really the band, even though I enjoy the band, but it's the song. And this is going to sound dumb. I don't know why I really like the song, but I do. The song is called I Don't Know Why by Imagine Dragons.
Okay.
It's not one that they've released. It's just on the album. I mean, I know everyone likes the other stuff they've come out with. I bought the album because my son wanted to hear it. But it's the first song on the album, and it's one that I repeated over and over and over again, and I still do it. And again, I don't know why that's the case. I don't know if it's the beat. It's just the way the song feels. It's one of those that I can't stop listening to. And I know it would probably, if they released it, it would be popular nowadays, because it seems like anything nowadays that gets released is really popular,
Right.
But it's not one that they've released. And I like the fact that I like something. Like, my favorite song off that album is something that maybe not a lot of people even heard, because they wouldn't get past the other songs that the band has come out with. Next
on my list is Bryan Adams. Again, most anything that's popular by him, I'm definitely a fan of. Summer of '69, Everything I Do It For You. There's just, again, that's the Robin Hood reference out of Everything I Do It For You, but whatever. And also the one that he did with Sting and Rod Stewart, All for Love, the one he did for Three Musketeers,
Disney's Three Musketeers. Boy, did we get an education from that movie or what?
Yeah.
I mean, that movie taught kids some stuff that they probably didn't need to know about at that time.
Right, no kidding.
Thank you, Rebecca De Mornay. And I actually have the Everything I Do on my list because I bought that single, I think 2 or 3 times on tape because I wore it out.
Nice.
Yeah, that's my favorite.
That was like the junior high dance song,
Yeah, I mean, that's just it. I mean, I like that movie so much and that song is a big part of it. I mean, and yeah, I bought the single to that back when you could buy quote unquote singles.
At Sam Goody.
Yeah. And that's probably where I got it from. Whatever, Music Land or whatever was in our mall.
Yep.
I don't remember which one it was. So, Next on my list, I can really say almost anything from one album, but I'll name one song. It's A Nightmare on My Street by DJ Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince. I mean, I love that whole album, the He's the DJ, I'm the Rapper album, and of course, like Parents Just Don't Understand's a great song. But this song, as a fan of Freddie, I could not stop laughing at this song. Because, seeing Freddie at that young of age and understanding that, Freddie wasn't real and all that, and, being able to enjoy Freddie, and especially the joke that Freddie was becoming, that song even made it better. And I think they may have gotten in trouble for that song because any re-releases of that album, that song isn't on there. Right. So I think they got in trouble for that one, but
I'm surprised it got it. I mean, that came out as a single too, which is like, wow, I'm surprised that they got away with it, but they did somehow.
Yeah, but yeah, that's one that, it sounds just like a spoof of the movie. Right. Which is fantastic. And I could not get enough of that song, cuz it was one of the first songs on that album. I can't remember if it may have even been the first song. It's been a while since I've listened to the whole album, but that one I just couldn't get enough of.
The next one, not obviously just as the group, but specific song because it's a one-hit wonder. I'm Too Sexy by Right Said Fred.
The song that started as a joke and became a thing.
It's funny now because it's like back then I was like so annoyed because it would just play over and over again, but now it's like when I listen to it, it's like, yeah, I'm into it.
What was the story? The story behind that was the singers owned like a Gold's Gym, and they were making fun of the people that worked out there, and then their song became a thing. And yeah, of course it was a one-hit wonder. I mean, I don't remember if they even tried to release something else, but that song, I got tired of that song pretty quick. But then again, they never took it seriously, so I give them credit for that. The next song on my list is, and you could really consider this one popular now, thanks to The Sopranos. That's "Don't Stop Believin'" by Journey. But the reason I love it is because of a movie I mentioned earlier, and that was The Losers. Chris Evans in the office scene, running from the security guards to "Don't Stop Believin'." Just it's a scene that sticks with me to this day, and it just makes me love that song even more because he's singing it first in his head. He's got headphones on and he's singing it. And then the movie or the song kicks in full blast when he's running, and I just love it because of that.
Next group on my list, not everything by this group, but every once in a while when something comes on, like Tearing Up My Heart or Bye Bye Bye, I'm gonna enjoy some NSYNC when it comes on nowadays.
You and I can't be friends anymore.
Oh, come on. And to be fair, I do enjoy some Justin Timberlake today too. I can't deny that the kid is he's about my age. I shouldn't say that. The guy's, he's talented. He's definitely a talented musician, and where the talent lied in that group just by seeing what he does today. So,
the next one on my list, and this is a song that convinced me that a movie was good, even though the movie kind of isn't good. That's Duran Duran's "A View to a Kill."
Oh, man.
The Bond movie isn't as great as I always remembered it.
No.
But I still enjoy that movie, but what I really enjoy is the song. The song always just made that movie for me. I mean, you can't go wrong with Christopher Walken as the villain and Grace Jones, this day, Roger Moore going, I was waiting for you to take care of me personally. It's, the movie's bad, but I still enjoy it. But it's thanks to Duran Duran that I enjoy it.
Right. Do you have any more music, Gino? Because I'm ready to move on to games if you don't.
Yeah, I got a few more I'll throw out real quick. Though it wasn't for the movie, I love Danger Zone by Kenny Loggins.
Oh, yeah. Kenny Loggins was like the soundtrack guy of the 80s. Footloose, that I'm All Right from Caddyshack. Oh, man. I mean, his stuff was gold.
I know a lot of people are sick of that song, but, man, to this day, anytime that comes on, it's like an Eye of the Tiger or something like that. I have to crank it up. Any Quentin Tarantino movie soundtrack, I can play front to back and love every second of it. He just knows how to, it just makes you think of the movies, and that really always worked for me. Save the Best for Last by Vanessa Williams. I, to this day, have a crush on her because of that song. And then, of course, I mentioned Bryan Adams, Everything I Do. And I just listened to this last one today. This is my biggest guilty pleasure of all time. And you love this one, too. Transformers, the movie soundtrack.
Oh, come on now. That's the best movie soundtrack there is.
And as cheesy as that soundtrack is, man, if you don't get emotions listening to that, if you've seen that movie, then, you don't have a Matrix right there in your chest. Because, I just listened to it today, and that Death of Optimus Prime, spoiler alert, that Death of Optimus Prime music comes on, and I started welling up still, so man. Yeah, that one to me is my biggest guilty pleasure, and I don't care if anybody thinks ill of me for loving that whole soundtrack. It's just 80s-tastic feel. Everything about that soundtrack I love, and I will not apologize for it.
I missed in TV, I just thought about this. I missed Saved by the Bell. I don't know why, but, man, I loved Saved by the Bell.
You forgot about Kelly Kapowski. How dare you?
Oh, yeah, I know, right? I was a Jesse Spano guy, though, so...
I just couldn't remember her name.
Right.
It was the Showgirls girl.
Yeah. All right, I'm ready to move on to some video games. And I don't know about you, Gino. Most of mine that I've got on here are kind of from the NES era. I've only got like a few short lists because, there's not as many games that I like that are like, universally panned. But a first one on my list is Castlevania 2 Simon's Quest. I realize that most people hated this one compared to Castlevania 1 and Castlevania 3. But actually, Castlevania 2 is my first one that I played, and it's like the second game that I owned on my NES. But I enjoyed the open world feel of it. I didn't know any differently because I hadn't played the other two. And now having played games like Symphony of the Night, I still go back and still feel like I could enjoy that one more than the others. Just a straight, hard as nails action ones. I don't get into as much just because I suck at them so bad that it's just not as fun for me.
Well, what was cool about Castlevania 2 is that it was, and really people didn't really know about it back then because, the internet wasn't a thing. You had to rely on Nintendo Power and things like that. It had like 3 different endings, depending on how fast you got through the game or whatever it was. The problem I had with that game was, man, they messed up on explaining a lot to you.
Oh, they did.
It's like, how am I supposed to know I'm supposed to kneel at this wall with this thing? And the ferryman loves garlic. How many pieces of garlic did you throw into the lake trying to get the ferryman to do something for you? Things like that. Yep. But that being said, once someone figured it out, then the game, and you could move on, the game was really cool.
There were so many games that did that, though. With translation issues, that game, Zelda 2 even had some cryptic stuff in it. Goonies 2 had a lot of cryptic stuff in it.
The first one on my list, and this is definitely a newer one, and to this day, I'm mad that they're not making another one. They turned the graphics of this one to a stupid mobile game. That's WWE All-Stars.
That's a great one.
It's cartoony. It captures the ridiculousness that is wrestling. At the time, it had probably the greatest roster of wrestlers, including the DLC. Everything was exaggerated. It had a fighting game type feel, but it was definitely like 3D, and you can move all about the ring and outside the ring and everything. And just everything about that game just screamed, this is pro wrestling. But then, people were expecting, another, whatever, SmackDown versus Raw or 2K, whatever they're called now. But this one was just very cartoony, and I loved every second of it. Yet they took the graphics of this and turned it into a stupid free mobile game, and I'm not going to forgive them for that. And it just drives me nuts that this game became that.
I always liked it was the ones that were made by THQ in the N64 era. There was WCW versus NWO World Tour, and then Revenge came out, and then they did WrestleMania 2000 and No Mercy. All four of those games on the N64 were just solid. It's the same sort of thing. I mean, it's not as fast paced as All Stars was, but it still was at least like the controls in those were at least easy. It wasn't a whole lot of button combinations to pull off moves and stuff. So I always really enjoyed those. And the original SmackDown game for the PlayStation 1 was really good.
Yeah, this is a game that I kept it. I wasn't going to get rid of it, and my kids play it every now and then. I could not explain to them how to play a 2K game. Heck, I haven't even played like a quote-unquote real wrestling game for years now. I think probably 98 was the last one I played, I think. Whatever they were called back then. I think it was still SmackDown Raw back then. For PS2. That was the last one I tried playing other than All-Stars. And really, the way I see them going now, I couldn't go back. I couldn't go to them. They're too complicated for me now. I just want when I play a wrestling game, I just want to have good, stupid time with ridiculous characters and big, powerful moves. When I can do a tombstone pile driver that goes 50 feet in the air, and knocks his opponent out, that's fun to me. And the quote unquote real wrestling games just, really I've almost bought some recently, and I just couldn't bring myself to do it.
The next one on my list is Mick Kids for the NES. Hey, I played this game when it came out, and I rented it. And yeah, it is a Mario 3 clone, but you know what? It's still a decent Mario 3 clone. I liked the game, and I could still pick it up and play it and enjoy it for what it is. Even though, the AVGN wants to say what he says about it, but I still think, hey, you know what? I liked this game, okay?
I don't remember ever playing it, but yeah, I've seen plenty of footage from it. And yeah, it does just what it looks like. It's one of many games that, took that Mario look and feel and made their own thing out of it. And, hey, if it's fun, it's fun. I'm not going to blame you for that. The next one on my list, and I don't know if you still are into this or not, which I don't even think it's really a thing anymore. Rock Band.
Oh yeah,
I know.
Of course, Guitar Hero.
Of course. See, I prefer Rock Band because it's got the microphone.
Okay, sure.
Because man, okay, I'm okay with the guitar. I suck with the drums, and but man, I may not be a good singer, but by God, I can win that game.
Yep.
and I remember me and you and the families having nights, playing Rock Band. And I know it became a thing not to like. It became a thing to hate after a while because, man, it's DLC Central, right?
Right. Well, it's because Activision ran it into the ground because they decided to make like every edition of it all in one year. They made like Guitar Hero 5, Guitar Hero. They did DJ Hero, Band Hero, Guitar Hero, Metallica. It was so many of them that people just couldn't. They couldn't keep up, so they just got tired of it and they threw it out. Guitar Hero was good up until the third one. The first and the second one were made by the company that made Rock Band. So of course both those games were going to be great. But yeah, Rock Band after the second one was definitely the better of the two series.
Yeah, but and I dug that one. Like I said, nowadays it's one that people love to hate it now. But if someone asked me, hey, do you want to play a game of Rock Band? I would say yes. And
let's do it.
And I would have an unapologetically good time doing so.
Another one, and I mean, these are still going. They're still popular, but I mean, as an adult, it's probably a guilty pleasure. But I do enjoy the Lego games every once in a while. I will say that they do get a little repetitive just because they are essentially the same game with a different skin for each one. But I mean, when you get franchises where you haven't really gotten a decent game out of that franchise other than the Lego games, then I guess it's okay.
Yeah, when it comes to those games, for a while I was buying them one after another because my son was having us play through them, and that's just it. It got to a point where on one game we'd do something, he'd be like, "Oh, it's like the person from the other game," whatever the power was. I think it was Elastic Man and Mr. Fantastic basically had the same powers kind of thing. So yeah, they get really repetitive. I had to stop playing them after a while. After I played like 4 in a row and 100%ed them, I was kind of done with them for a while. But it's one of those that eventually I'll pick back up because they are, even though I am mad at Traveler's Tales for not finishing the Hobbit one, which really made my youngest sad because what do you mean we don't get to finish it? I'm like, well, they just didn't finish it, bud. Oh, okay.
Well, these movies were so bad that nobody...
I mean, but they're still making some. I guess they're making a new Marvel one is coming out, or it came out for Xbox One and PlayStation 4.
I'm sure we'll get a Last Jedi one at some point.
Apparently not. I think they're going to finish it up and then do a final thing.
That would make more sense.
Even though the Force Awakens one was really good. And I guess they're making an Incredibles one. That's both it's not just the new movie, it's the first movie too. Okay. So that would be kind of cool. Then again, it would probably be a lot of the same powers as the Marvel one, considering in fact that's where the Incredibles got a lot of their ideas from. So what's the next one on your list?
The last one I have on my list is for the NES, Milon's Secret Castle.
Oh boy.
Oh man. Now I will say at first, when I first played this game, it was so difficult that I threw it down. I just couldn't do it, and I was mad about it. But going back and playing it, having a little bit more sense of how to explore in games now, I've kind of gotten a little bit more of a love for it. It is still a difficult game, but I've definitely picked it up and enjoyed it a little bit more.
I'll go through the last ones on my list here pretty quick. Ken Griffey Jr. presents Major League Baseball for SNES. This game, I love it for the epic battles me and my brother used to have in it. This was a game that it had one professional player on it, Ken Griffey Jr., yet you could rename the players on the teams, and they were the real players. You just had to give them the names. And me and my brother did the Cubs and the White Sox, and we had some epic battles between those two teams. What's funny about that game is the characters were very just like the WWE All-Star game. They were very cartoony, and players that were big home run hitters had like big bodies and little heads. And this was before Mark McGwire got caught taking steroids. And then it just come to find out he looked like that in real life, which was always funny to me. Road Rash for the PC, not the Sega Genesis version. I wasn't really a fan of those. The PC version I loved because it has Soundgarden on the soundtrack. You had Outshine and Rusty Cage playing while you're beating people off of motorcycles. That was always cool to me.
Yep.
A couple of RPGs, Shining Force, which I know it's had a huge following, but it never really got past like your Final Fantasies and things like that. It's always seen as like the lesser RPG.
The second one of that is so great.
Yeah, and I finally got to play through the second one thanks to the Genesis collection on Xbox 360. But the first one, I had the cartridge, and I got it to a point where I could take my main character and beat the last guy by myself. Just with the one character. I played it so many times. Then also on Sega CD, there was Lunar, the Silver Star. That was an RPG that it was one of the first, and along with Shine Force, was one of the RPGs that I was able to finish on my own And then also for Sega CD, Spider-Man vs. the Kingpin, thanks to its 80s rock soundtrack, which was way past its time because...
Yeah, wasn't it the dude from Mr. Big?
I don't remember, but it was...
singer in that?
But it was definitely an 80s style soundtrack, but I mean, the Sega CD was not an 80s machine. But I just love that game. It was a lot of fun. And the last game I have is Snatcher on Sega CD, which was Konami's cartoon style attempt at a Blade Runner type game.
Okay.
I mean, it was definitely highly influenced by Blade Runner and Terminator. It was kind of a hunt down the robot replicant kind of thing. So that was a lot of fun, and it was kind of it almost felt like a choose your own adventure with the occasional, point and click shoot 'em up type movie or type game. So that was one I had a lot of fun with that I played with a lot.
Going back to Shining Force, it's funny because I had picked up or I caught wind of the Fire Emblem series when it first started coming to the U.S. and I started looking at footage and so I was like, this game looks like Shining Force. And then I came out and realized actually Shining Force was after Fire Emblem. It's just that Fire Emblem didn't come to the States for so long.
Yeah.
So I mean it derived from that. It was like, oh, so actually Shining Force is like Fire Emblem, but okay. If you haven't played any of the Fire Emblem games, I would highly recommend it. You could probably pick up the GBA versions for either cheap or other means. So,
but yeah, that's all I have on my list. Trust me, I'm sure there's more. I remember when I was making these lists, after I made the list, I'm like, oh yeah, this, oh yeah, that, and it's like we're gonna be here all day.
Yeah.
But because
there was one more movie that I thought of. I didn't put Willow on my list.
Oh, that'd definitely be on my list because they even made fun of that movie in the movie Fanboys. It's like, yeah, here's Willow's wand. You remember Willow?
I loved that movie,
and I just showed my kids that not too long ago, and they loved it.
Yep.
That's like my son's like, I don't want to watch this. I was like, trust me, you like The Hobbit, right? Yeah. Because I showed him the cheesy Hobbit cartoon.
Yep.
You like The Hobbit? Yeah. Well, just watch it then. You'll love it. Okay. And then it took 10 minutes, and he was glued. So, yeah, anyone that doesn't like Willow out there, you can't
Shame on you.
You can't be my friend. No.
All right, I think that's enough to wrap it up. Gino, you want to go ahead and plug channels?
Oh, yeah. I'm the Reel Geno Reynolds. You can find me on YouTube at the Reel Geno. I do movie reviews. I'm getting some game reviews out there. My Geno's Bad at Game series, I'm going to be starting that back up again. I'm going to be changing up the way I do my movie reviews a little bit, trying to break up the monotony a little bit. Also, I do a podcast called Get on the Mic. So yeah, if you like what you hear, on this podcast, definitely subscribe to the Reel Geno YouTube channel.
As for me, you can find me at HeiseNerd on YouTube. Just look up HeiseNerd. You'll be able to find me. I'm pretty much at the top once you look that up now. And also you can find me on Facebook at facebook.com/HeiseNerd1. On my channel, I do game Let's Plays, some live streams. As a matter of fact, me and Gino just did a live stream last night of D&D Tower of Doom, which was most epic. And then... just feel free to like, comment, subscribe on those. And then, again, just thanks for watching my stuff and Gino's stuff. Thanks for, listening to this podcast. We do appreciate the support, and we hope to hear from you guys in the future.
And also, if you want to hear this podcast on any other place other than YouTube, make sure to check out the DNA Digital Network. Now, thanks to DNA, you can hear this podcast on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, and any other place that podcasts are available. So now you can listen to this podcast on your favorite audio devices. So, yeah, make sure to check out DNADigitalNetwork.com.
You got through it. You did it this time.
Yeah, we've been doing, let's see, our timer's around an hour and a half. I don't want to do this again. I don't want to start over, Bill. I love talking to you, but I don't want to start over. I'm so tired. The second I hit stop, I'm probably going to fall asleep.
Yeah, no kidding. Okay, go ahead and sign us out, Gino.
Well, again, guys, thank you so much for listening to the GB3 podcast. And again, if you've enjoyed this podcast, feel free to subscribe to the channel. And also, if you like what you hear, please subscribe to HeiseNerd and to the Reel Geno YouTube channels. Until next time, this is the Reel Geno, Geno Reynolds. See you later.
Later.